Do you ever wonder if you're of Jewish descent? Do you think there's a family secret that's hiding your true Jewish identity? Discover how new developments in DNA testing can reveal if you have Jewish ancestry. Today on Jewish Voice.
Shalom and welcome to Jewish Voice. I'm Jonathan Bernis, and we're glad to have you with us for today's program. I see a very interesting phenomenon that's occurring today in the church. A love for Israel and the Jewish people is growing like I haven't seen before in more than 30 years of ministry. Through letters and emails, and as I travel, people often tell me that they just feel Jewish. They ask me if there's any way to find out if maybe they have Jewish ancestry or if there's some family secret they can uncover to discover their true identity. Well, with today's technology and knowledge, solving this mystery is getting easier and easier and may be possible. My guest today has made the discovery of such secrets his mission in life. He has an amazing story, and what he shares today may answer some of the very important questions that you've been asking. He's the author of a new book, Out from Hiding, and the president of the Sephardic Anusim Center for the Americas. Please welcome back to Jewish Voice, Dr. Dell Sanchez. Dell, welcome back.
Good to be back. Thank you.
So much has happened, I know,
Yes.
in the last 7 years since we had you on the program.
Yes.
But for those that don't know who you are, aren't familiar with your ministry, share a little bit about your background, because you have an amazing, amazing testimony.
My father discovered, as a baby of his family, at 77 years of age, he discovered a secret that his father had been given up for adoption by a ranking military officer in the Mexican army who happened to be a Jew. That was the oral history. Dad didn't know about it. Dad told me about this in the spring of 1996.
How did he find out at 77 years of age?
They kept the secret from el bebé de la familia, the baby of the family. All the elders, the older brothers and sisters, he was a babe, knew the secret, evidently. But he found it out from his older sisters, because the tradition is the Sephardic or Sephardic Anusim mom will tell the daughters, won't tell the sons, because the sons can't keep a secret. They go out, get drunk, and tell everybody, something like that, So they told Dad the secret. That is, his nieces were the ones that told him, because they found it out from their mothers. So then Dad tells me, and here I am. I can't keep a secret.
Del, two questions before we go on. Define anusim for those that don't understand the term, which I think is a great number of the people watching.
Anusim is a Hebrew term that basically means coerced or forced. Forced to do what? Forced to convert from a Jewish lifestyle from the days of Spain and Portugal and then down to Mexico and Latin America, forced to convert to Roman Catholicism. It smacks of racially being raped, because they forced the individual at the point of torture, at the point of death, or the burnings at the stake.
Okay, so before we go on with your story, also tell us why the secret. Why has this been kept a secret?
Since 1391, from the first major diaspora, the Inquisition, the slow Holocaust that began in Spain and perpetrated by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, brought in the Inquisition, that slow Holocaust that lasted 300 or more years in Spain, transferred to Portugal, and it was a matter of, you're either a Roman Catholic, we will here in our nation, and if not, we're going to put you to death. It's simple. They were tortured through many, many different forms. The parents insisted, kids, you don't tell the secret. They went underground. You don't tell the secret. This is a family secret. As a result, they went so far, so well underground. They kept the secret so long, so well, they forgot what the secret was.
So, Del, in effect, we're talking about fear of identifying as a Jew.
Exactly, yes.
Which transcends Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Jews in general.
That's right.
And God's changing that. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Dr. Dell Sanchez about his story and also why this is a fulfillment of end-time prophecy. Much more ahead when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back to Jewish Voice. I'm Jonathan Bernis, and with me today is the author of a fascinating book, Out from Hiding, Dr. Dell Sanchez. We were talking at the break about the plague of anti-Semitism, which has made this a secret, the fear of sharing identity, which was kept from your father.
Yes.
So he's 77 years of age, and he's told you're Jewish.
That's right.
Take us from
Yes. I took, the information. I traveled throughout the southwestern states of the USA because I figured this was the hub of the crypto Jews, of the Jews in hiding. I went into Mexico. My wife and I, we explored in key places like Monterrey, which was a hub of many of the descendants of the secret Jews, and Port of Tampico, where they came in from Spain and Portugal, and Mexico City. From there, we've gone to Spain. We've been to Israel at least 30 times in search of this secret because we figured that if there was at least my wife and I, knowing that we have some kind of ancestry of Sephardic Anusim roots, well, then how many more are there?
This is fascinating to so many people that are watching right now, especially Hispanics that may very well be Jewish. What kind of numbers might we be talking about here?
Benziah Netanyahu, who is the father of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was quote before he passed away. He just recently passed away. He was quoted as there being 60 million. Okay, 60 million. My theory is that there are greater than 60 million all across the Americas, particularly, notwithstanding in the Iberian Peninsula, still that they're tucked away in Spain and Portugal and places like Morocco.
60 million? When we compare that with the current known Jewish population of maybe 17 million.
Right.
We're talking about 4 times larger Jewish population.
That's right. Our forefathers thought that they were doing a whale of a good job hiding themselves, hiding the secret. It was more than what our forefathers could do. The Almighty was hiding us, or we wouldn't be here to tell the story.
Dell, what compelled you when your father found out and he told you to begin to focus on this?
I think I could summarize that with what Mardochai Arbel, he is a former diplomat of Israel to the nations and islands of the Caribbean. And with teary eyes, as one of the speakers at a conference I gave on the Anusim in the Negev, in Israel, he said, "Vuestra sangre clama." Your blood is crying out. That's what happened with Dell Sanchez. And many other like Dell Sanchez and Helen Sanchez, my dear wife, of almost half a century. Our blood is crying out. How can
So you were compelled.
Yes, I was compelled.
By the Spirit of God to do this.
Yes.
Well, I believe, and the reason this is so important is that I believe this is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy, that there are many events that are being focused on, like a rebuilding of the temple, who the Antichrist is, the Confederation of Nations, but there's other end-time events that are below the radar, if you will.
Yes.
And one of them is the discovery of the outcasts of Israel, Isaiah 11:11. Talk about that as you understand this is an end-time fulfillment of prophecy.
Yes. Interesting, because I've even talked to Israelis, and I've mentioned the book of Obadiah, Obadiah. And I says, don't you know that in your own book, in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, Obadiah, verse 20, it's just one little chapter, it says, "And the exiles of Jerusalem that are in Sepharad," which is Spain, "will return and occupy or possess the Negev." And that outcry, that cry within our soul, that we've got a prophetic destiny to fulfill. Now, I believe with all of my heart, based on what I think I heard you say, is that as around 911, Obadiah 1:1 begin to take play. It's like God is upset with the enemies of Israel. And there is a whole panoramic view leading to verse 20. And in there around verse 15 it says, "And the day of the Lord to all nations." But then comes, "And the exiles of Jerusalem that were in Sepharad," the Sephardim, the descendants of the secret Jews, will return. But that is not the highlight. The highlight, well, everything is set up, Jonathan. Prophetically, I believe, this is me. This is my own prophetic, my own theological premise. Everything prophetically is set up. Now it's just a matter of advocating in Israel that doors be open for our people, because verse 21 is a punchline. And then liberators shall ascend Mount Zion. They'll punish the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's.
Let these bones live. Fantastic. I want you to understand just how significant this is. We're talking about end-time events being fulfilled before our very eyes. Dell, I know you've written a number of books, 5 in fact. The most recent one that you've written, Out of Hiding. In the book, you discuss different sources of information which has led Latinos to discover their Jewish ancestry. I think there's many watching today that are asking the question, could I be Jewish? I feel Jewish. I want to know.
A professor in Mexico told me when I was doing a conference in Saltillo, Mexico, he says, you've got to focus more on surnames because everybody wants to know about their name. One field that's known as onomastics, it's the art and the science of surnames, apellidos, sobrenombres, surnames. And we trace it, a lot of the Hispanic surnames, like Sanchez, Martinez, Duarte, Alvarado, Gomez, and Duran, and on, many of them, according to Guillermo Feigenbaum, a premier master at the subject of onomastics from Brazil, by the way. He says, look, many of those surnames, of the Hispanic surnames today, are of Sephardic origin. I said, well, when did they change from a Hebrew surname to a more Spanish surname? He says, we don't know, because as we get the records, that's the way we see them already. There's something in the names that people, at least that's an indicator. I'm not saying that's a conclusive determinate factor or fact, but it is an indicator. It is a handle that if you've got this surname, like Netanyahu once said, I mean, if it walks like a duck, you know, it quacks like a duck and it smells like a duck, I'm saying that it must be a duck. So we follow, not that every Hispanic surname is proof in finality that they're Sephardic, but it's a beginning.
But there's connections, guilt by association.
That's right.
Time has slipped away, but I do want one last question I want you to answer. Again, I know there's many people watching right now who are asking this question. How can I find out if I'm Jewish? How can they find out?
One way, of course, to me, the long way, the hard way is genealogy. Okay, hire a genealogist to do a genealogical study. But the shortcut to happiness is a DNA study.
They've made amazing advances.
Oh, yes. Now, once you get the results, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the trail. That's just the beginning of the trail. There's a lot of more digging to do, but at least it points you in the right direction. For example, my father has a very peculiar DNA until we did what's called the Family Finder with that same laboratory, Dr. Greenspan's laboratory. Then we begin to discover, aha, now we find matches to my father when before we had no matches. And so then you begin to get, and you glean from these other matches, well, what do you know, and what do you know? And different people have done studies, and you begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
So you can solve this mystery. End-time prophecy being fulfilled. I will gather, restore the outcasts of Israel. Dell, thank you for coming. Thank you for your wonderful work. Keep up. Dell Sanchez, everyone. We have more ahead, so be sure to stay with us. Wonderful. We at Jewish Voice are passionately focused on proclaiming Yeshua, Jesus to the Jew first and the nations. Jewish people are opening up to the gospel. The blindness is coming off of their eyes, just as God promised that day would come. That's why we're determined to carry out our mandate and mission to go anywhere on earth where God's chosen people, the Jewish people, need our help. 2012 has been an amazing year already, and yet we have so much more work to do still ahead.